Hello, Beady friends, and welcome to another class by Beadalon for the Michaels Community Classroom. I am Meredith Roddy from Beadalon, and as always, I am so excited to be here today to teach all about Beadalon products, how to use them, hopefully inspire you to make some fun jewelry of your own. Right at the top, I'm going to mention if you do make today's project, please go ahead and post it on your socials. Use the hashtag LearnWithMichaels, the hashtag MakeItWithMichaels, and of course the hashtag Beadalon, so we can see all of the amazing things that you make. I'll also remind everyone that this class is being recorded, so you can go ahead and rewatch it in about 24 hours after our class ends today. Welcome everybody who is joining me live. I'm seeing a lot of very familiar names, and as always, I really appreciate you being here. To all of the new people who have never had the class before, go ahead and drop a little comment over there. Let me know that you're new so that I can welcome you to our beading community. If you're watching on the replay, as always, the instructions for this class are linked right down below, and please feel free to download them and make along with the video that you are watching. I think that is all of the housekeeping that I have at the top of our class today. So let's go ahead and take that overhead camera and we can get right down into it. So today what we are going to be talking about is Supplemax. Supplemax is a monofilament illusion cord. It feels and behaves and looks an awful lot like fishing line, but this is not your fishing line that you grab from your tackle box or from your reel, I suppose is where it should really live. This is monofilament that is specially designed for beading and for beaders. It is available in Michaels in two different diameters. We have an 010 and an 012 diameter in Michaels stores. There are a couple of other diameters that are available as well. If it's a material that really that you're really drawn to, there is something that there are other diameters as well. It is a great material, and you can see it's very hard to see, right? Well, one of its primary purposes is for making illusion necklaces. So those are the necklaces that you make that you have a little spacer of beads in between. I love crocheting. It's actually technically a chain stitch. With this, I've done some classes in the past for the Michaels Community Classroom using pearls. And it's a great technique for creating a necklace that has a really nice floating look to it. So in the Michaels stores in the beading aisle, you'll find this in the stringing section, along with the WildFire and other different stringing materials. But there are three different versions of this, including the two diameters. There's also something called Supplemax Ultra, and then also a Supplemax Braid. So let's talk about the Supplemax Ultra really quickly. The thing about the Supplemax Ultra that makes it Ultra is that it is ultra abrasion resistant. In fact, it is 15 times the abrasion resistance of usual nylon bead stringing materials. So we're not talking about wire, right? We're talking about things that are in the stringing material realm. This is super soft. It's a little more opaque than traditional Supplemax. Again, it's very hard to see on the video because that's the whole point of it, right? Is for it to be almost invisible. It has a little bit more opacity than traditional Supplemax, but is also much softer. I really like using this for bead weaving applications. And then the last Supplemax in the Supplemax family is Supplemax Braid. And this you can actually see a little bit better. It's a 0.5 millimeter diameter, so it's a little bit thicker than the other ones. This has a break strength of 10 pounds. So very, very strong and very, very durable. There used to be on the market years ago a product called See-Through B. I don't know if any of you seasoned veteran beaders know or remember that, that product, but that's what this is designed to mimic. It is great for knotting and great for when you want to string with a very very soft and supple thread material, but you want it to be really, really strong. So those are the 3 types of Supplemax. And now let's get into what we are making today. So I used the clear Supplemax for this design. It is, you can see when I hold it close to the camera, that it's a variation on a daisy chain. So I have my thread or my beads going around in the circle, and then one in the middle of that circle in a chain. I'm getting requests to unmute my mic. The only mic that's muted is actually the forward-facing camera. You all should be able to hear me unless your sound is off on your computer. The sound is on and should be good. So double check the sound on your computer just to make sure, because one of my mics will be muted, the overhead one, and then the feature where my hands are, that mic is not muted. So this is just as a point of reference, this is my test piece. So oftentimes when I am coming up with a project, I test a lot of different materials, but I wanted to show you this today so that you can kind of get a sense that you don't have to use the beads or the sizes that I am using today. So today's bracelet are these 2 sizes here. It is a 6mm rondelle. But I also made up a couple of flowers with an 8mm rondelle. And then I started it with the 4mm rondelle. And I really liked this as a design idea. And if I were making this for myself, I might choose to go with those 4mm rondelles. But you can see I experimented with adding a bead here in between. I experimented with having no bead in between. And what I actually ended up with on my final design was having a bead here in between, because I didn't like just having this raw piece of Supplemax here. So I definitely encourage you, try different beads, try different sizes. There's no reason why it has to be consistent for your whole design. I think that is all of the information I'm going to throw your way. Now let's get to learning. Let's get to making. Jennifer says it makes a difference with the 2 extra beads. For my eye, I really like how it looks. So knowing that the whole point of Supplemax is to be an illusion so that you don't see it, I realized that if I taught class today with, actually, let me grab the right one, with a clear, transparent cord, that might be a little frustrating for those of us who actually want to see what I'm doing with my thread path. So I grabbed, this is not available at Michael's, but I did grab a black Supplemax because there's no reason why we need to struggle with being able to see, right? And you've noticed I haven't mentioned anything about any needles for this project. One of the things that's great about Supplemax is it has that great in-between kind of a feel to it. It is much more supple than, say, a beading wire, but it's much stiffer than, say, a Nymo or a silk cord where you would need to use a needle. You do not need to use a needle with the Supplemax. For some projects, I do use one, but for this particular one, I don't need a needle, and that makes it really, really easy, even easier to use. So I'm going to pull off about 5 feet of the Supplemax, and the way that I do that is I just measure my wingspan. I measure arm to arm. So for me, that's about 5 feet and 3 inches. I could do a little bit less if I needed to, but that's what I use. And I'm using the 0.010 inch Supplemax for this project. I thought that I tried it with the thicker, the 0.012. I thought it laid nicer with the 010, but if you have an 012 in your beading stash, that will work fine for this project as well. I like to mention as I'm teaching kind of different substitutions, and oftentimes you can kind of judge things a little bit to make the project work for what you have on hand. Okay, so I have just a simple lobster claw clasp, and I have my tag already attached to the other end, just so I don't lose it. I tend to do that because if I don't do that, I lose the second half of my clasp. So I'm moving this, my lobster claw down about halfway in against that Supplemax. And I want to make sure that my ends are nice and clean. I've got a little ding here from just from where it was on the clip. So I'm just going to give myself a nice easier, smooth end to work with. So let's get to stringing. So on each of these cords, and what we're doing is a 2 needle crossover technique with a couple of little variations. Some think of that as perhaps a ladder stitch. If you've done a ladder stitch before, this should be no problem for you at all. So I'm going to add 1 4mm rondelle on either side. And for this project, I'm going to move these out of the way, but I used a couple of these great 4-strand skews of beads, which come with a 4, 6, 8, and 10 millimeter. For the colors I used in the example, these are the skew numbers here, right up in the upper left-hand corner. But the great stash buster for beads that you might have. And I actually, for demonstrating today, I grabbed some leftover beads from other projects. All right, so let's see, I did not put my beads on yet. So let me go ahead and I'm going to put 1 4mm bead on one of those ends and 1 4mm bead on the other end. Okay. Then I'm just going to kind of move everything down. I want to continue. I'm holding both of these in my right hand or my dominant hand, just moving everything around down so it's at the halfway point. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add 1 8mm rondelle onto one of the sides of the Supplemax. And then I'm going to pass back through that bead with the other thread. So in this project, we're going to be passing back through, and then in another step, in a couple, we're going to be passing them both through the same way. So the instructions are there just to know which is which. But in this case, I'm passing back through. And again, I am keeping everything down as much as I can at that halfway point. So now onto one end, I'm going to put 2 of those 8mm rondelles. So 2 on one, and then 2 on the other. And I want to point out that we're going to be using a medium to loose tension on this project. Though because of the way that the beads lay and the way that the material moves, you just want a nice loose to medium loose tension, tight enough that everything is going to be where it needs to go without too many gaps, but not so tight that your beads kind of get all in the wrong places. All right, so let's see, what do I have here? I've got 2 on one side and 2 on the other side. So now what I'm going to do is, in that complementary color, so color B, or the color that you want for your center. Okay, so I have one color going around and one color in the center. You could do it all the same color. There's no reason not to do that. This is where I'm going to put both of those ends through the same way. Okay, so in that previous step, we did them opposite ways, and this step is going through the same way. Okay, and we're going to move this down. Now, those of you who have taken classes with me before know that I always mention in any project, there's one step that's the tricky step. the one step that you kind of have to pay the most attention to. This is that step, okay? And I find that if I point it out and I know that this is the tricky step, I'm paying a little bit better attention. I know what's gonna be happening. I'm gonna show it a couple times. So if you don't get it the first time, obviously, tomorrow you can go back and watch it over and over again, but I'm gonna show it a couple more times in case you're like, wait a second, I totally missed what happened. All right, so I have my 2 threads here, my 2 Supplemax tails here, and they're pointing straight up, okay? What I'm going to do is bend this down so that it is now my 2 tails are facing me. And I'm going to put one on one side and one on the other. Okay, so let me just do that again, just so you're like, wait, what? I told you this was the important step. Okay, and again, none of this has to be tight as we're doing it. So I've got my tails up here at the top. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to bend this down. I'm going to hold it in place with my thumb too. It's going to really help me with what I need to do next. Because my thread path now is one side. I'm going to go up through these 2 beads here. So I'm going to go up through this 1 bead. I'm not going to do it in one pass. Maybe if I was being super, I don't know, super ambitious, I would do it in one pass. And then I'm going to go through that 2nd bead. And again, I don't need to make this super, super tight. It's easier for me. I'm going to flip it because I also need to get that 2nd thread, that 2nd piece of Supplemax, up through that 1 bead on the side and that other bead on the side. Okay. And again, nothing needs to be super tight. You're kind of like, wow, this is a mess. You could do it if you wanted to, kind of one on one side here and one on one side here. Maybe I'll try that on the next one and see if it works out. It's a little bit easier for me to just do it on that one side, but let's see what happens if I can make that work on another one. We've got a couple to play around with before we bring it up to speed. All right, and so remember that red bead I went through both the same way. Now this next bead I'm going through, passing back through again. So I'm going to put 1 gray bead on one of those sides of the Supplemax. Then I'm going to get the other end and I'm going to come back through on the other side. Okay, so I've got one coming out here, one coming out here, and let me get my thumb out of the way. They're crossed in that bead. I'm just going to pull this down and snug everything up. And there we go. I have my first flower. Let's bring that up nice and tight to the camera so you can see what's going on. So I have my 2 4mm down here, got my daisy, I've got my middle, and now I am ready to start the next one. Okay, so if you're following along, I did steps 2, 3, and 4, and we're just going to repeat those 2 steps, or I'm sorry, those 3 steps, 2, 3, and 4, until we get to the end. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to put on the end of both of my threads, and it helps to kind of hold them like little antenna. It just kind of keeps everything together and not one of the good things about Supplemax is that it is not quite as tangly or as knotty. It might be naughty, but it's not as knotty as some of the other materials that you could be working with, and that's one of the reasons why I like it. So I've put a 4mm on both. Now I'm going to put that 6mm. I'm going to put 2 6mm on one side. I'm going to put 2 6mm on the other side. And as I mentioned in the beginning, you could do this project with 4mm. You could do it with 8mm. You could also do it with rounds. I just really liked how it turned out with these 6 millimeter. I'm sorry, I'm using 8 millimeters. You could use it with 10 millimeters or 6 millimeters or 4 millimeters, all the different millimeters. But now that I'm ready to do my center, I'm going to fix my, I'm going to change my color, and I'm also changing my thread path. So I'm taking both of those ends and I'm going through that bead the same way. Fran's asking a really good question. She's asking, if I were making 4 millimeter flowers, what size would I be, what size beads would I use for the first two? And I did not use them here. I might try 2 millimeters. I might try even like a size 11 seed bead. That might take a little trial and error to see for your eye which one you think looks best. I could advise starting with a 2 millimeter though. I think that's a good idea. And GF is asking, could I use WildFire for this project? Absolutely, 100% yes. That is a great choice for this project. It's going to be, the challenge is going to be, I like that this is has some stiffness and some structure to it. And that's what the Supplemax gives. If you're using WildFire, it's going to be a little floppier, for lack of a better description, because because WildFire, I just happen to have a little bit right here, is going to be even more drapey and thread-like. And that's why I chose the Supplemax for this project, is because I want my project to have a little bit more structure to it. So I've gone through those two beads in the same direction, and this is where that little flip comes in. So my thread is facing away from me. I'm just going to bend it down gently so that it faces toward me. And I don't know if your screen froze, but my screen froze for a second. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that again. I've got it up and I'm just going to bend it down. And I'm holding everything very loosely. I'm holding it securely because I do need to hold onto it. But let me see, I had mentioned last step. We're gonna try this to show this a different way and see. So I really want to drive the point home of where this thread path is going. So I'm starting on my right side, and I'm going to take my thread. Let's see if I can just drive this point home a little bit. I'm going to come up these two beads. So I'm going to come up here through this bead here, pull this through, and then I'm going to come up this next bead here. And you can see that even with a phone in between me and what I'm doing with my fingers, I'm still doing great without needing a needle. So I'm excited about that. All right, so now I'm going on my left-hand side. And I do need to keep my finger here just so that things don't get all kind of janky as I'm doing that. But you can see I made this loop over here, and now I'm going to do that same loop over here. I'm going to go up through that first bead to complete the circle or to start the circle, and then that second bead to continue the circle. There we go. And how loose I'm keeping everything to be able to do this. Just making sure everything is in focus really nicely. Just pop that up just a skosh. Okay. All right, and so now I have that bead at the top. I'm going back to my first color, that gray. And then this is where I go through this way, right? We went through red this way, gray this way. So I am going to grab these threads again. I find that if I hold them both together, it's a little bit easier for me to manage. And I'm going to put one bead on one side, and it doesn't matter. You can start on the left or the right. I tend to always start on the right, but if you're a lefty starter, that is totally fine. And I'm going back through. So I have one bead on one side, one bead on the other side, and then I'm going to tighten everything up. And now I'm ready for the next one. So I'm just going to give myself a little bit of extra space here. I think everyone will still be able to see. And let's go ahead and do that next flower. So we're going to do this one a little bit faster this time. But I'm holding both of my antenna together, and I'm adding a 4mm. Yeah, if I were using 4mm beads, 2mm might be a good contrast, but I might even like a size 8 or a size 11 seed bead. The proportions might be a little bit better. I will just kind of have to kind of play around with it a little bit, just like I did for this project. Like I have my sample piece here. I just kind of played around with different combinations. Each one was a little bit different and then I found the one that I liked, but then I went a little bit bigger just to double check. Is that what no, actually, I'm sorry. Take that back. This is where I added the 4mm on either side. So each one is different until I decided what I wanted to stick with. And then I did another example or two just to double check and make sure. So I encourage you to experiment and play around and be inspired. One of the great gifts for being able to access so many amazing classes from not only the bead designers that Michaels offers in the community classroom, but all of the other crafts as well, is to learn and be inspired and then make it your own. All right, so here I am. I just did that flip. I'm going to come up on one side and the other side. I don't think even kind of when I get into the rhythm of this, that I know that I can do this in one pass. And what I'm working with is 8mm, and here I'm going to do that flip over again so I can keep using my right hand. I am using 8mm rondelles. So last time I was at my local Michaels store, I grabbed a whole bunch of these they're like, wait a second, Meredith, I only see 3. Well, because I used the 4th. These are really great, and they're really cost effective too. I'm reading your comment, Jennifer, and I'm wondering what the difference is. Let me finish this flower, and then I'm going to point it out to you, because I think that you might not be seeing the two beads are being incorporated into the flower. Oh, you're totally right. Oh my gosh. What an amazing, and I didn't, sometimes when I'm demonstrating things, I build in mistakes so that people will point them out to me. But Jennifer, you found a mistake that I wasn't even meaning to make, and I really, really appreciate that. That's awesome. There's one step that I neglected. So we're going to continue here, and I'm going to show you what I did wrong, and then we're going to talk about how to fix it. Oh, I love that. Awesome. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Thank you. Okay, perfect. So finishing this up. And the best part about that is I think I would have gone the whole class and I wouldn't have even noticed. And then at the end, I would have been so disappointed. All right, so this is great. We're going to use this as a learning tool, because oftentimes when we're doing our when we're learning something new and we're following along with a YouTube tutorial, sometimes we don't pay as good of attention as we should. And even instructors, I remade, where's the one that I worked on this morning? I did a practice, but I only practiced the first pass, right? This is the one that I practiced on this morning. And if I had done two, this would have been top of mind. So I really, really appreciate this. All right, so let's see. Let's see if anybody else can figure it out. So indeed, the next step is to add the 2 beads on the side. So I've got one here and one here. I love that we've been doing this long enough together that we're learning together too. We're learning together, right? Okay, so now let's double check. What did I miss? What I missed is adding 1 8mm rondelle and going back through. Okay. All right, so there we are. And then I do the 2, right? That's right. So what I was doing before is I went through my 2mm and then I immediately started with 2 on one side and 2 on the other side. What I neglected to do is this stuff right here. So we're going to do it a couple more times. So we really got it. We have plenty of time. No worries. Is to start here with 1 more bead added in between each flower. So we figured it out together. Indeed. All right. So we added our 2mm beads, and then we added another 8mm bead to start our next flower. Oh my goodness. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Fantastic. Okay. So still the same technique. We didn't do anything terribly wrong. There was just one little step that we neglected to add. However, I will say that I'm kind of digging this as a variation. So let's just really quickly play this off so that we can really see what's going on here. So here we have the flowers separated, and here we have them blended together. So I don't know, which one do you guys like better? I'm gonna hold for a pause as I think about it. I might like this one better. Maybe that's why I went ahead and did it. I don't know. I would love to know what people think. I think I like the actual separated flowers. Yeah, this is definitely more of a right angle weave kind of a look to it. With the different colors and the different shapes, it does give a different look. But I think I like the one on the right better. But now we know how to do both. So there you go. It's a double class. We learned another technique as a bonus. All right. I wish I could say that I meant to do that. Sometimes I do, as you guys know. Sometimes I'll do a little mistake just to see if people are paying attention and to kind of use it as a way to move forward. But this was a happy accident. So I'm glad that we were able to do that together. So let's go ahead and so same technique, adding after we've added that first. I just need to move this guy out of the way. So I've got my grays on both sides, and now I'm going to come in and add my red in the center. The best thing that could possibly happen is for a student to become a teacher. And kind of feel like I need to hang up my hat now. All right, so now I'm going to come around and just the same thing. I'm going to go up those 2 on the sides. Up 1 and up the next one. And flip that over. and come up one. So all of the same rules apply, whether or not you are adding that extra step or not. You want to keep a loose tension, but tight enough that all of the beads are where you want them to be. Hey, Wanda. Yes, Sandy, that's a very good point. Be happy that people are paying attention. That's right. Just don't have me in the background. All right, so we went through that red bead, and now this is the one where we go side to side. So crossed in the middle, one goes through one way, one goes through the other way, and pull tight. Sorry, pull taut. And so now we have a little bit of a different look there, whether our flowers are connected or whether they are separated. I think I do like the separated better. All right, so let me re-show that step just one more time. So we're going to come in here. I've got my two ends. I'm going to put one bead on one side. So that's the end bead. It's got a little material through it. One bead on the other side. And then this is where I want to come in with my 8mm bead and go crosswise. Okay, so this is the step that I was neglecting when we first showed it. I want to put it in and go crosswise. So one on one side, one on the other. And pull tight. And it's interesting, at some point when I do this, I'm working away from myself. And then when it gets a little bit longer, I start working toward myself. Isn't that interesting? Just noticed that about my beading. I wonder if anybody else has that same kind of phenomenon while you're beading. You do it one way for a little while, and then you switch it and do it another way. So now is the time that I'm going to do two on one side and two on the other side. And I have run out of those gray beads. I'm just going to pick up one of these green ones because it's close enough. And I am going to, oh, you know what? I'm not even there yet. And see, here's an unintentional mistake that I caught earlier. One went on one side, but I got three over here. So I need to just take one of those off and put it over here. Okay, so double check and make sure when you do this, you've got two on one side and two on the other. So very good question from Elena. She's asking how many flowers are needed for an average size bracelet. So for this guy here that I did as my example, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 flowers. And that is approximately 8 inches. Okay, and it's going to have a little bit of a stretch to it because of the way that the Supplemax behaves. So that you can kind of gauge from there. If you need to do one less flower, maybe you need to put a couple beads on the end. Maybe you need to do an extension chain. Lots of different ways of accounting for space. All right, so back to here. I've got my two beads on one side, 2 beads on the other side, and then I'm going to come here with my red bead, my contrasting color bead. Both of the threads are going to go through. Then I'm going to flip it over. And I am not worried about which Supplemax is going through which way. It kind of will tell me. Sometimes it crosses, sometimes it goes through one way. That does not matter as long as it is going through happily, or you're not kind of forcing it against its nature to go through. So you don't have to worry about keeping one side on one side and one side on the other side as we're going through, but you do have to make sure that you go through both. Okay, I've got my one. I'm going to flip it over. You can see it can get loose as long as the beads don't fall off. It can get loose. And this one has flipped back behind, so I'm just going to use my awl to pull it out. I did want to mention, since you all are here in class with me today, I don't know if anyone has been to their local bead store in the past week or so, but in my local Michael's, there is a new reset. And what that means is lots of new items are on the wall. So my reset in my local Michael's is about halfway done. But one of the most exciting things is that you will notice is there are two, maybe three. There are a lot of new lines. I believe it is, it used to be up on my wall. I think it's 10 new tools from Beadalon are in Michael's stores now. So we are so grateful for our friends at Michael's for bringing in so many new Beadalon tools. In my Michael's store, they are all on the bottom row of the tools wall. In the industry, we call those POGs or POGs. Little industry speak for you guys, a little insider information, but really, really exciting. And I need to schedule a kind of a going over everything class. Either next class or the following class will be that class, because I have to wait and make sure that it's set in all of the stores before I'm able to do that. Okay, so I just finished my my last flower. I added those 2-millimeter beads, and now this is the bead that I need to go on one side of the thread and then back through, crossing back through the other side. And that's what starts that flower anew. So let's go ahead and do one more flower, and then we will finish this guy off and call it a day. So there's an amazing new cutter that has gone in. There is the really cool, you might have seen them, the nylon insert pliers. A couple of those went into Michael's. And then a new designer line of tools that are just fantastic. They all have navy blue handles. So I was really excited there. It's a kind of a consistent look, which is always really nice. And yeah, we're really, really excited. And in addition to the Beadalon tools, there are a number of other new products that are in with this reset as well. That was just, I didn't get a super long time to walk and see everything that was in there, but I think you all are going to be really excited about the new stuff. So back through on the other side. And if you are watching this on the replay, or if you are scrolling through in the comments, there are written instructions that you can access to, if you're more of a visual learner. Sometimes I like to see a video, and sometimes I like to see them actually written down. It kind of depends on how my brain is functioning that day. So please feel free to download them from either place, and then you'll be able to follow along. Okay, so we've showed two different variations, right? Our first bonus variation where our flowers are incorporated together, and then a second variation where our flowers are separate. So beader's choice, you choose which one you like the look of better. And my jury is still out. I think there's a time and a place for both of them. But I think I like my flowers a little bit separated. So now we're ready to finish everything off. So just like we did in the beginning, I am going to add a 4mm bead on each side, or, you know, this would be the next step anyway, as we were getting ready for our next flower. And I have 6 flowers here. This is going to be way too short for, you know, for a grown-up sized bracelet, unless you have very, very small wrists, which is possible. All right, so I've got 1 4mm on either side, and my tails were just a little long. So in the interest of making my life easier, I'm just snipping them a little bit. And then I'm going to go ahead, and I've got my tag down here. I'm going to take my tag off. It'll just be easier to show without that tag on. And I'm continuing, like, as I would add this bead, oh, sorry, to get that focus better. As I would add this bead right here, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go through the tag with one end one way and the other end the other way. And now I'm going to go back around through to reinforce this with one of the sides of Supplemax. So I'm going to go back through this bead, and this bead. Let me just double check and make sure. You can kind of make this part your own. All you need to do is reinforce and then weave back through and tie a knot to finish it off. So let's see if I can do this the way that I originally intended. Yeah, okay. So now I'm crossed through the tag. Let me just bring this down a skosh. I'm going to thread back down with both of my tails on either side. So I'm going to thread one back down through this bead. And one back down through this bead. And there's a lot of nice wiggle room that's already built in because we've kept a pretty loose tension to make sure everything lays really nicely. But now what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring the top back through this 8mm here. So I went just right back, looped around and came back through here. Because what I am going to do, now that I've reinforced this, is I'm going to tie these two together in an overhand knot. You could weave back through and tie your overhand knot down here. Oh, that's a bad focus. You could weave back through and tie your overhand knot down here, weave back through and tie your overhand knot back down here. Doesn't really matter. But here I'm just going to go ahead and tie that knot. So I've got right over, making this way more complicated than it needs to be. Right over left and coming through. Oh my goodness, Meredith. Like you're tying your shoes, right? Right over left, pull it through. The reason why I'm struggling so much is because I'm doing this down on the mat rather than having it up at my face. And before I tie that second half of the knot, I just kind of want to pat this down, make sure everything is laying nicely, it's not too janky. And then I'm going to come here and I'm going to go right over left. And let's just go ahead and do a good old-fashioned surgeon's knot. Tie that one more time. Tighten that up. And now the great thing about Supplemax is it behaves or reacts really well to being melted. So what I like to do with the ends of my Supplemax, very carefully, I come in with my WildFire cord cutter or whatever thread burner you have at your disposal. And what I do first, actually, is I come in. You can do this part with a cord cutter too, but when I'm demonstrating, it's a little bit easier just to get these ends shorter with scissors. And then I hope that my batteries are still good. And I just tap this and melt it. Let's make sure that everybody can see. You don't want to melt it so much that your knot melts off, or so much that you burn through the thread that's already on there. But you should be able to, with a little bit of practice and some good readers, get this nice. Probably should have started with that a little bit shorter, but it's okay. Okay, and then that's melted. That's not going anywhere. So, my goodness, that was a fun class. We have two different variations. We have a variation where our flowers are attached, a variation where our flowers are separated. We have our clasp on either side. And we have some good insider information that there are lots of great new products in the Beadalon stores. So I'm trying to remember what next week's class is. I cannot remember right now. I think I submitted it, but I'll have to go ahead and double check. But in a couple of weeks, I will definitely be doing an overview on the new tools that Beadalon has in store. So I'll come up with a little project, but it will be mostly information heavy on what we have in stores. But I can actually add a little sneak preview. Got two right here. These are the nylon jaw pliers. So for everyone who stayed to the end, this is a little bit of a bonus round. Round nose and flat nose with an insert here. And in fact, I think that we don't have the flat one in Michael's. Yep, grabbed the wrong one. I apologize. Don't tell. Chain nose, much better one. Chain nose and round nose. We have in these great dark blue handles, navy blue handles with a nylon insert. And we'll talk about why that is special and important when we get to these tools next time. So Felicia, I think we're ready to go ahead and take that overhead camera. Thanks so much for your awesome moderating skills. Thanks everybody for hanging out with me. And thank you so much, Jennifer, for pointing out in the very get-go, or not at the get-go, once you realized that I was doing a slight variation on our modified daisy chain technique, but we got a 2-for-1 today. So I'm very excited for that. Thanks everybody for hanging out again. I'm Meredith with Beadalon. If you are inspired by and make one of a project from either one or both of the techniques that we learned today, please go ahead and post it on your socials. Be sure to hashtag learn with Michaels, hashtag make it with Michaels, and hashtag Beadalon so that everybody can see what you've made. And of course, I would love for you to hashtag or tag and follow me. I'm at Meredith Joy Designs on the Instagram. So thanks everybody so much. There will be another class from Beadalon by Sarah Lovecraft in a couple weeks, and then I'll be back in about a month as well. And until then, happy beading.